on a special live edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We're in our nation's capital to update you on the work of NCBA in Washington, D.C. We'll have special guests from Capitol Hill, plus insights on the key policies and regulations that impact the beef cattle industry.
And now, live from Washington, D.C., it's NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with your host, Kevin Oxner.
Hello, I'm Kevin Oxner, and welcome to a special live edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Tonight, we're celebrating our 400th episode of this television program, a program founded on the idea of providing news, information, and education specifically for cattlemen and women. I've been privileged to be a part of this effort, and I want to thank you for watching as we mark 400 episodes since our debut back in 2007. Also on this Veterans Day, I want to salute all our veterans, those who have made so many sacrifices to protect our freedom and our way of life. Thank you for your service. Now, as I mentioned, we're live from Washington, D.C., where so much happens that can affect our nation's beef cattle industry. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight on a wide range of policy issues, so let's get started. Joining me now is Senator Deb Fischer, a Republican from Nebraska. Senator, thanks for coming to the show tonight.
It is great to be here, Kevin. Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about the Waters of the United States regulation. Clearly, that's created a lot of consternation among our members, and frankly, some of the people I talk to consider it nothing more than a land grab by the EPA. How would you respond?
I would say that the EPA is trying to extend their authority, and I believe they're overreaching when they are trying to control and regulate all the water in the United States. We're used to state and local authorities having that responsibility, and they've done a good job of taking care of the needs of their states. They understand the needs of their states and their localities and really put forth some common sense. The federal government's not known for putting forth a lot of common sense on some of these rules, and this one is definitely an overreach.
So our viewers need to probably understand that this is a regulation, not a legislation. And I guess as a legislator yourself, I would ask you, how do you feel about an agency like that drafting such broad sweeping rules without the consent of Congress?
I'm also a cattleman, besides being a United States Senator. And I can tell you that when the EPA and the Corps of Engineers is trying to do this overreach, they're extending their authority in a place where Congress never anticipated that it would go. That was not the intent of Congress when the Clean Water Act was passed. All of us want clean air. All of us want clean water. But this isn't the way to go about it when you look at the proposed regulation. As a matter of fact, the Small Business Administration has urged the EPA to withdraw this proposed rule because of the impact it's going to have, a negative impact on small businesses and hitting their bottom line. This is a proposed rule that's going to really have a negative impact on farmers and ranchers, but also on everyone. Everyone, whether you're in a county official trying to build a road and you have water in the ditches, the EPA will claim that that's waters of the United States. That's not the intent of the Clean Water Act.
Just ridiculous. And I wanted you to put that rancher hat on. We were talking about you and your family out in Valentine, Nebraska. What concerns you most as a rancher, not as a senator?
Well, first of all, I am from the Sandhills in Nebraska, a very rural area of our state, a rural area of our country. We don't appreciate over-regulation, and this is a case where we're seeing it. We're good stewards of the land, like most farmers and ranchers. We are good stewards of our land. We understand that we're passing it on. We take care of it. We have 3 sons that are grown and back on the ranch. We have 3 grandchildren on our ranch. We know how to take care of our land. And this rule, because of the cost involved with the permitting process, that's going to maybe stifle some of those conservation practices that farmers and ranchers use, such as terracing. And that permitting process isn't going to allow us to move forward with innovation and those great ideas where we really manage and conserve the land and the water that we have.
Well, I want to follow up on that and just say, you know the ranching business. You have neighbors and friends that are ranchers. Your family's ranchers. Help us understand, why do you believe that ranchers do or don't need oversight in order to take care of their natural resources?
Well, as I said, I believe we are good stewards of the land. Yeah. We understand that this is our livelihood. This is our life. This is where we live. This is where our families live. We understand the importance of taking care of those great natural treasures that we have, our water, our land, our grass, our cattle. We believe in those conservation practices. And I think that every farmer and rancher can identify with that. When we work with our local officials, when we work with our state officials on these practices that we have and the regulations that we have to meet, that's the way it's supposed to work. It doesn't come down from the federal government telling us that everybody needs a permit unless you can prove you don't need one. That's just growing government. That's not taking care of our resources.
Well, Senator, we're so grateful to have folks like you representing our interest on Capitol Hill, and we hope that your message gets through. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
No doubt what happens here in Washington can have a big impact on the people who work hard on farms and ranches all across our country. Over the past several months, we've gathered insight from a variety of voices from the cattle industry. We asked producers what message they want to deliver to policymakers here in Washington, D.C., and this is what they said.
Certainly, we want to be able to provide a profitable, favorable business climate for livestock producers. And so we want to make sure that our government is there to support our operations and not to be overburdensome in terms of regulation. We want to have a voice in shaping those so those are reasonable, common sense rules that we can abide by and still be able to provide a profitable lifestyle and to do our part in feeding and clothing the world.
If I had a chance to go and talk to Congress and tell them what I thought, I don't think that I would tell them anything. I would bring them out and show them what we do on a day-to-day basis and allow them to see how we operate, the things that we need, the government programs that benefit us, just so that they could have a hands-on experience and understand how they impact us and our industry and the food industry as a whole.
My message is I want less taxes, and if you have to do less for me, do less, but don't keep raising my taxes and trying to protect me from cradle to grave. Let us do some of our own things, and we don't need more government. We need less government and less taxes.
We need some leadership. We need some leadership in Congress, in the Senate. We need somebody to kind of stand up and provide some vision for this country, not one election cycle to the next. They get into office, and it's really frustrating for me because they do about 3 months of work, and then they're back into re-election mode. So I think, there's some good people back there. I know there are. I've met some of them. And so, hopefully we can get some more of those good people in there and get something done.
We need all the help we can get, especially in Washington, D.C. with lobbying for us and lobbying on our behalf and keeping us informed on the issues. There's a lot of issues that come up that living where I do, we don't see those issues on a day-to-day basis and get emails and stuff from NCBA, and it's worth a fortune to me to be able to find out what's going on.
If you'd like to support the work of NCBA in defending and advocating for the cattle industry in Washington, D.C., why not become an NCBA member? It's easy to do. Just call toll-free 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit the website beefusa.org. Joining me now to talk about some of the top issues of the moment for cattlemen and women all across our country is Forrest Roberts. He's the CEO of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Forrest, thanks for coming back to the show today.
You bet. Kevin, thanks for having me tonight.
You've been talking to a lot of folks, and I'll tell you one thing. As I talk at livestock events, coffee shops, the topic of the discussion is high cattle and beef prices. What has that done to the mood of the cattlemen across this country?
You know, Kevin, it's one of optimism, and optimism like I've never seen before. And growing up around this industry my entire life, it's a level of optimism that's really contagious. And so, I mean, we have to recognize that where we are with record beef prices across all classes of cattle, that's territory we've never been in this industry ever in our history. But I think we also got to recognize there are some areas that are still struggling with drought, like in the far western areas of the U.S. and California. But outside of that pocket, obviously moisture conditions have improved greatly. And so we see this balance of beef producers, no matter what segment they're in, they're balancing this area of planning and managing. And you look at feedlot operators today, they're managing lower occupancy rates and the challenges that come with that, with some profitability now. But then seed stock and commercial cow-calf operators, those families today, Kevin, I see families that have really been able to, in the last year, reap the rewards and enjoy the rewards that some of them have worked an entire lifetime to achieve. And that's really neat to see that mood and that contagious optimism across the industry today.
So what does it mean for NCBA? Clearly there's some optimism. What is the state of the organization itself?
Well, NCBA is an organization, we're in that transition phase as we just wrapped up our fiscal year 2014 and just began our fiscal year 2015, October 1. And when you look at it, whether we're talking about the financial aspect or the outcomes that we've achieved or our team, our people, I am very proud to represent the brand NCBA. And whether it's the financial results that NCBA today has achieved, we're in a totally different area than we've ever been with a strong financial foundation. And coming off of several years now of continuous double-digit growth in our membership. And so when we take that and we start to look at, well, what are we doing with this momentum? I think there's outcomes that start with demand. The wholesale beef demand index, Kevin, that's at 131 today, whereas going back to 2009, we were at about 97. So that overall demand for beef globally is really on fire. And so when we look at the challenges that we're focused on, we're balancing that preference for beef with consumers around the world, whether it be about price, safety, nutrition, and image, how the beef eating experience was produced. But really, when you look at what happens here today inside the Beltway, our team is focused on making sure that there's a business climate that producers all around the country can have so that they can pass that operation on to the next generation. And perhaps the best echo of that is what I heard just here over the past few days. Back in June, I was in Beijing, China. And a peer of mine with a different organization in a different country was talking about what he saw with the growth of NCBA and that momentum that we have. Well, I saw him last week in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and he is from Brazil. And he said, you know, Forrest, I see an organization that has a level of momentum that I think is probably the fastest growing organization representing cattle producers on a national level is anywhere in the globe. How is NCBA doing that, and how can we learn from your success? That's probably the best testament I've heard about that, and it doesn't happen without a team of people that are our staff, our volunteer leaders working together to really be able to bring the grassroots interest of beef producers forward. And that's what's really special about being in this organization.
That is neat. And speaking of grassroots interest, let's talk about a different situation. Secretary Vilsack published a press release just last week suggesting that he wanted some comments and some input into the proposal that he is moving forward with regarding a supplementary checkoff under the 96 Act. Give us your reactions to that press release and that issue at large.
Well, Kevin, we've been working through the beef industry working group, the Beef Checkoff Enhancement Working Group, for over 3 years, trying to work together to find that common ground, to bring a solution that the majority of cattle producers in this country want. And what we see with what the Secretary is proposing is, while his intentions may be pure of trying to find more resources for an already successful program, the way that he's going about it, we feel, is wrong. Simply put, it's a duplicative program that essentially gives more power in terms of decision-making authority into the hands of the federal government, as opposed to the way the current program works, and that is really in the hands of cattle producers that pay this $1 per head assessment. And so we are pushing back because we feel that the work of the Beef Checkoff Enhancement Working Group is the solution that the majority of beef producers in this country want and need. How do we build on this success that we have? Because as you know, Kevin, this program today is supported. The Beef Checkoff program today is supported by almost 80% of the producers in this country with a favorable rating. And we just measured it, where we looked at an $11.20 return. So 11-to-1 return on investment is just significant. There would not be any business on the face of this earth that wouldn't enjoy an 11-to-1 return on investment today. So we're trying to build off of a successful program and enhance the assessment and the resources in it.
So real quickly, what are the next steps?
Well, the next steps are there is a notice of inquiry that came from the Secretary's office on Friday. We're working with our state partners to make sure that we're providing those comments that we don't want that. What we want is this, and that is a solution that enhances the current program under the 1985 Act. So we'll be coordinating that with all of our state partners. And what we need is everyone out there tonight, if you're watching this program and want to be engaged in this discussion, we first encourage you to do that, and we encourage you to come to San Antonio, Texas the first week of February and participate in that discussion and really bring forward the solution that grassroots producers want. That's what we need right now.
Thank you, Forrest, for your leadership and for coming tonight.
Thank you, Kevin.
Time after time, producers tell us one of the things they value most about being a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is the unified voice NCBA provides right here in Washington, D.C. As we continue to hear from those voices out in the country, let's see what folks had to say about the value of NCBA working on their behalf here in Washington.
Well, folks are very concerned about all the different proposals that keep coming out of EPA and the continuous over-regulation that we're faced with from our federal government at this point in time. And it seems like every tool and every advantage that cattle producers, farmers, and ranchers have, somebody's trying to take it away from them. So that's mostly what I'm hearing. And NCBA's, that's a big focus for us, a big priority to try to help alleviate some of those problems.
Well, I think we have a tremendous staff out here that's fighting for you every day, and that's why you need to be a member. You need to contribute not only the dollars, but contribute your time to learn so you know what the issues are so that you can stay in business. It's one of the very positive things about NCBA is they are fighting for you 24/7 every day of the week. It's amazing what these guys can do out here. And everybody should be proud and everybody should support that because they do have your best interests in mind.
Another aspect of coming to D.C. is visit the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Washington D.C. office. We have a staff of 18 there and they are working hard each and every day. I know you hear this all the time, but it's true. And it may sound corny, but if you come and see our staff working on our behalf each and every day, it makes me excited, and I just can't wait to go out and try to get other people to join NCBA and be a part of the solution. It's exciting to be here. We can get work done and have positive results for the future. It's exciting.
There are many reasons to become an NCBA member, including some valuable incentives for doing so. You can find out more about NCBA membership by calling 1-866-USA-BEEF or visiting the website beefusa.org. Through NCBA, the cattle industry has a daily presence on Capitol Hill. And joining me now is the leader of that effort, Colin Woodall, Senior Vice President of Legislative Affairs here in Washington, D.C. Colin, thank you so much for coming to the show.
You bet, Kevin. Always good to be with you.
It's nice to be in your hometown now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been in this organization for about a decade now, and I just wanted to begin by asking, what's it like to represent the interests of cattle producers here on Capitol Hill all those years?
Well, you know, Kevin, this truly is a dream job. To be able to represent our members every day up on Capitol Hill in this great building that you see behind us. You know, our members are working really hard to take care of their operations, to make a living, to produce high quality beef. They don't really have the time to worry about the shenanigans going on in this town each and every day. That's my job. My job is to lead that charge, to make sure that we're fighting the fight, make sure that their voice is being heard by these members of Congress, and more importantly, to work every day to keep the government out of their business.
Yes. And, you know, we had some interesting midterm elections here just last week, and I wanted to ask you, what do those midterm elections mean to the work that you're doing and going to be doing over the next couple of years?
Well, we have a lot of new friends. We also, unfortunately, lost a few friends.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, with a switch in control of the Senate, the Republicans now being in charge, we do expect more opportunities to see passage of legislation that's going to help us push back against the regulatory overreach from this administration. So we're excited about that. But in the meantime, our job is to really focus on these new members, especially their staff, make sure they understand who NCBA is, understand the cattle industry, understand our issues, and more importantly, be prepared to stand up and vote for us when they get the opportunity.
We need a few more folks like Senator Fisher in the Congress, I think.
Senator Fisher is a great representative of not only her home state, but also the ranching industry, and has done a great job for us up on Capitol Hill.
Let's talk about some of those key issues. You mentioned those. What are the 3 or 4 key issues that you'll be working on?
Well, we're doing a lot of work right now to make sure that beef stays in the center of the plate when it comes to dietary guidelines. We're making sure that we can continue our work on opening new markets for U.S. beef to go into our foreign customers. We're making sure that we can preserve the rights of cattle producers to operate with grazing leases out on public lands. And we spend a lot of time fighting the EPA, or as we say these days, it stands for Eliminating Production Agriculture.
I hadn't heard of that one, but that's very appropriate, right? Let's talk about another acronym, WTO and COOL, all right? It's the story that doesn't seem to die, Colin, and I would like your take on the recent ruling that we've heard come down from WTO. What does that mean to the industry?
Well, it's unfortunate that COOL is something that we're still talking about well over a decade from the first time it popped up here in Washington, D.C., and it has been very divisive within the industry. But the World Trade Organization has come out, and for a 3rd time now, they've made it very clear that COOL violates the trade agreements that we have with Canada and Mexico. What that means is ultimately Canada and Mexico can retaliate against us by either shutting down their markets or placing tariffs on our beef. That's a problem because Canada and Mexico have historically been 2 of the top 5 markets for the export of U.S. beef. So if we lose that access, that's a negative impact on us as U.S. cattle producers. You know, this was an experiment. It was an experiment that failed. It's time to get the government out of marketing, and let's make sure that we market it as an industry because we know what's best for us, and it's sure not the government.
We asked Senator Fisher about her take on the waters of the U.S. Ruling and redefining waters of the U.S. I'd be interested, what happens if this actually comes to pass and is implemented?
If this is implemented, it means that the EPA is coming on your operation, and they're going to tell you how you can use your land and the water on your property. Regardless of what EPA says, they're going around saying that this is not going to impact agriculture. When you look at the words on paper, which is what the enforcement agencies will look at and what the lawyers will look at, it tells a much different story. And it gives them the access to regulate farms and ranches at a level that we have never seen before. It truly is a land grab. We cannot afford to have that. We already have enough pressures on our members as it is. To allow the EPA to come in and do more to them, to restrict their access to the land, is something that we're just ultimately not going to stand for. So we're going to continue to work with Congress, and if we have to take it into the court system, we will do so to protect farmers and ranchers' rights.
I want to follow up on your trade comment a moment ago. Last I heard, we're generating another $285 to $300 a head value because of trade. What are the issues you and your staff are working on?
Right now, especially with this new Congress, we're going to make sure that we have Trade Promotion Authority, TPA, reauthorized. This gives the administration the ability to go out and negotiate these trade deals without worrying about all 535 members of Congress who might want to put their little tidbit in that particular deal. In order to send a very strong message to all of our international partners that we're serious about trade deals, the President needs that authority. The President has asked for that authority. We support it, and more importantly, the Republicans support it. So we're excited about getting that done so we can finish some of the outstanding trade deals, such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Thanks so much for all the great work you're doing. We appreciate it, Colin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Still ahead on this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. We'll have more on what's happening here in Washington, D.C. and how federal policies may affect cattle producers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're watching a live edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, coming to you from our nation's capital on RFD TV.
Whether you're feeding cattle, milking cows, or baling hay, the work on your farm is never done, which is why you need equipment that works as hard as you do. Get the efficiency and versatility you need with Case IH. From Farmall compact and utility tractors to balers and mowers, all Case IH equipment is designed with one thing in mind: getting the job done. To learn more, visit caseih.com/livestock.
Both here, 210.11. I'm at 210.11. Yes! Joe. Todd. How'd you do? Oh, not bad.
See what you have to gain at thelongrangelook.com.
To truck guys, the truck is everything. And when you put them in charge of making an unbeatable truck, good things happen. This is the Ram 1500, the 2014 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. And first ever back-to-back winner. Guts, glory, Ram.
I'm an NCBA member.
I'm an NCBA member because I think as an advocacy group, NCBA has done some great things for our industry, and I kind of feel compelled to give back some of what they've done for us.
Because this organization is looking out for cattle producers.
They understand what makes our cow-calf business profitable.
Join me today.
Join me today.
Join NCBA today. Head to beefusa.org or call 866-USA-BEEF.
Welcome back. We're live from Washington, D.C., celebrating 400 episodes of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. With me now are two of the cattle producers who serve as officers of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Philip Ellis, a cattleman from Wyoming, is currently serving as NCBA President-elect, and Tracy Bruner, a cattleman from Kansas, who's the NCBA Vice President. Gentlemen, thanks for coming all the way to Washington, D.C. for us.
You bet.
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, let's begin by getting to know you two just a little bit better. We had a great conversation last night, Philip, about the history and heritage of your operation. Tell us a little bit about your operation there in Wyoming.
Well, I'm glad to, Kevin. Yes, I'm a fifth generation to raise cattle in the upper Bear Creek area of southeast Wyoming, near the little town of Chugwater, Wyoming. The sixth generation is taking over the operation of the ranch, so I can be here in Washington, D.C. tonight. And the seventh generation with grandsons and grandnephews are on the ground. So we have run cattle there since my great-grandfather was a teenage open-range cowboy in the 1880s, running Texas Longhorns, to our current operation where we run a Hereford Red Angus Cross cow yearling operation, selling long yearling steers to feedlots and sourcing bred heifers to local ranches. We love the cattle business. We love raising cattle on the shortgrass prairie of Wyoming.
Outstanding. I suspect they're a little colder than you are here tonight in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And Tracy, you're new to the leadership team, but certainly not new to the leadership of the industry. Tell folks a little bit about your operation and your background.
Well, Kevin, I'm here tonight from our operation in central Kansas. We have a family business. It spreads from seed stock to grazing to finishing and farming and ranching. You know, and you've asked about my industry experience. I've had the opportunity to be chairman of the Kansas Beef Council and also president of the Kansas Livestock Association. Also served a 6-year term on the Cattlemen's Beef Board and 3 years on the Beef Promotion and Operating Committee. Within NCBA, I did work on the New Products and Culinary Initiatives Committee and chaired that. Also served as chairman of the NCBA Policy Division. But really, Kevin, the real experience for me has been over 30 years of membership in NCBA, the great people that I've got associated with, come to know, and be able to learn from. That's the real reward for me.
I would concur. And I want to talk to you about the people that you get a chance to visit with in your respective leadership positions. What are you hearing out there at state cattlemen's meetings? What's top of mind for cattlemen? Philip?
Well, that's the excitement, to be able to visit with cattlemen, but the genuine excitement about the cattle market today, and in many areas, the turnaround in the drought and the good rain they've had, the forage that's growing, so they have an opportunity to expand their operations, to get people involved. And so I think there is genuine excitement that we're hearing out in the country.
Tracy?
Well,
Kevin, if you ask about the mood in the country, I'd say it's probably the best that I've ever experienced. And that says a lot because cattlemen are known for their overwhelming optimism, and that's characteristic of their nature. You know, at least in the midsection of the country, we're recovering from that 5 years of ravenous drought and the exceptional feed cost spike that we experienced with that. Herd rebuilding is beginning. And, you know, what I see and hear from cattlemen far and wide and young and old is that cattlemen are anxious to invest in new technologies and new ways to build more beef and better beef for their customers here and abroad. And supply is not the only part of the story, Kevin, because demand is strong, very strong, up over 5% here just in this year alone. So I guess I would sum that up by saying there's a lot to smile about in the cattle business today.
If you can't smile now, you better just hang up your spurs, right?
You bet.
Philip, I know you're going to be incoming president-elect, or you are president-elect. You will be incoming president next year, and I'd be interested to know, what does that opportunity mean to you?
Well, Kevin, that means a lot to me. I'm passionate about families on the land, on ranches and farms, raising beef cattle. Since my days as Wyoming Stock Growers Association president, a regional vice president for NCBA, traveling about, I am passionate about the success of families, to visit with them, and for them to raise beef, the best protein and the tastiest protein for the families across America and really around the world. But everywhere I travel, when I am talking and being with beef cattle people, if I've never been there before, I'm home. And so I'm excited about that opportunity.
It'll be a good year. You know, at one level, the opportunity to be president-elect allows you to influence a bit, even in a grassroots organization like NCBA, the priorities of the organization. And I would ask, what are some of the key priorities as you move into 2015?
Well, two things are on my mind, Kevin. In the policy arena, I guess I call it the 3 T's. Trade, to keep this market moving, keep our sales growing so that we can enjoy the enthusiasm and market we have today. And then perhaps we have the opportunity with this fresh wind blowing across D.C. for tax, to take these tax extenders we're always working with and maybe make them permanent so we can have a planning horizon for expensing, bonus depreciation and those sort of things. And then finally, just the nuts and bolts of transportation is the other T, and the reauthorization of the transportation bill for weights and the rules that go along with that. But the other big one on the beef promotion side is with our millennial consumer. You know, that is the generation that we want to understand, we want to communicate with. We've done a lot of work there. We have more work we're going to continue to do so that they choose beef for their families as a part of their meals and part of their lifestyle, and pass that on to the next generation. So that's going to be important, and I'm excited about that.
Gentlemen, thanks for your passion and for your leadership. Now, as cattle producers know very well, protecting the business climate for the industry often means defending against government overreach, regulations that have the potential to severely limit our freedom to operate. We continue now with more voices from the cattle industry. We ask producers to share their views on EPA and the waters of the U.S. Here's what they had to say.
One issue that I'm pretty concerned about is the Clean Water Act. As they try and take over and get more control of the water, now they're talking ditches and ponds and stuff, and it just seems like it never ends.
But the waters of the U.S. issue with EPA is obviously a big one. For our own operation, I mean, that could mean that we've got water around, we've got irrigation ponds, we've got stock water ponds, and all of those could fall under the regulation of EPA.
I think it's an overreach on the part of the Environmental Protection Agency. I think it will, their excuse for this is to clarify a couple of Supreme Court cases that I'm very familiar with. I think it will confuse the people out in the country. It'll make regulation much more difficult to comply with. It's definitely going to be a situation where the federal government will not only regulate waters under the Clean Water Act, but they'll be able to regulate the land that water is associated with. and that's a huge overreach. It's way beyond the scope of the Clean Water Act.
It's a scary thing. You know, we've been doing the same things. We like to improve. We like to do everything right in our operation. But if they can just make a big blanket rule change, that would be hard on our operation and our family situation. But, you know, we try to work around everything we can to be profitable and do what's best for the environment.
Well, it's going to have a terrible impact on the cattle business. And, you know, just one example, I would tell you, I was down in Florida, and, you know, they talk about, you know, having to make movements across different pastures or wherever there's water standing in areas, you know, that 404 determinations. Well, you know, somebody might have to actually get a permit to move their cattle from one pasture to the next. And in Florida, that's an everyday occurrence. So, you know, that's just one place. But I think this rule would affect just about every farmer and rancher, landowner, land operator in the United States.
And with me now is Christina Butts, Executive Director of Legislative Affairs for the Washington, D.C. office of NCBA. Christina, thanks for coming to the show.
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
For folks who haven't had a chance to meet you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So I'm originally from Texas. I grew up in Pearland, Texas, very involved in my family's Black Angus operation. I went to school at Texas Tech University. My undergraduate degree is in agricultural communications with a minor in animal science. I was on the meats judging team at Texas Tech. Yeah. I was also a beef ambassador in high school, and then I also received my master's in animal and food science, working on ways to validate interventions for beef trim that was further processed into ground beef. So strong background in the cattle industry. Made my way to D.C., been here 10 years, just about 6 years at NCBA, and I really enjoy trying to give back to the industry that gave so much to me in a different way of working on policy issues here in Washington.
Born, bred, and educated in the beef industry.
Yes, sir.
Well, tell us this, what's it like to work with Congress and with regulatory agencies representing the beef industry, and more importantly, how receptive are they to the messages you're bringing as a beef industry advocate?
You know, I think that it is really a great opportunity. A lot of the members of Congress, as well as their staff that we talk to on Capitol Hill, many of them don't come from an ag background, much less the cattle industry itself, but they're very intelligent and they're willing to learn. And I think once we take the opportunity to talk to them about the industry, educate them on the policy issues and what they are doing in Washington and voting on and how that impacts them on the ground, they really have a stronger appreciation for what our cattlemen and cattlewomen do every single day. And then also on the regulatory side, we spend a lot of time trying to educate them and helping them understand how these regulations will either have a positive or a detrimental impact on our cattle producers. So there's a lot of advocacy going on here in Washington. It's all about education and also just making sure that you're involved and you're here to share your story, because that really makes a huge difference in Washington.
Give our viewers a sense of some of the key issues that you're working on right now, Christina.
Well, obviously the dietary guidelines have been a big focus for NCBA, and I've played a large role in that. We've also been working against a proposed rule from the EPA on waters of the United States. Trade remains a top priority for what we're working on here in Washington. And we've also been doing a lot of things on animal health and animal welfare issues. So talking about how we use different technologies and just helping to make sure that we have the best available science leading some of these policy discussions.
Give us an update on dietary guidelines, and more importantly, why is it so impactful to the beef industry?
Well, dietary guidelines really are the foundation of all nutrition policy. So a lot of people might be surprised to know that NCBA works on dietary guidelines every single year, not just the 5 years every time Congress has authorized USDA, so the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Health and Human Service to look at the most relevant science every 5 years to see if it warrants any changes to the dietary guidelines. So when you start looking at nutrition policy, that's any type of school lunch or breakfast programs, military feeding programs, summer or senior feeding programs. So really those are the basis of all the decisions. So it's critical that USDA and HHS are utilizing the latest, most sound science on nutrition in order to dictate what those decisions are and eventually what those guidelines are for Americans in later 2015.
Christina, thank you for everything you do. I can't think of a better advocate for our industry.
Thank you.
There's more from Washington, D.C. and this special live edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen still ahead. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
This isn't a job, it's a calling. Your hard work helps feed the world. Being linked to those who care for the land is our calling. For more than 175 years, John Deere has been a proud partner of the cattle business. That's why we bring you special NCBA member discounts, so you can get the right equipment. Strong, rugged, versatile, and ready to work hard. Talk to your John Deere dealer to learn more about your NCBA member discounts. John Deere, committed to the land, committed to your success.
Hello, I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Each week, we travel the country to bring you the latest cattle industry news and information. Check us out at cattlementocattlemen.org or on Facebook and Twitter.
We stand for what we believe in. We believe in you. It's more than a job. It's your way of life. Who you are, where you live, and what you do. The way you treat your cattle, your family, your employees, and your neighbors. The water you drink, the air you breathe, and the ground you walk on. What you do every day gives families something to gather around every night. It's about doing what's right for your cattle, your land, your community, and your business. It's your livelihood, and it means as much to us as it does to you. We all believe in responsible beef. Let's stand together at responsiblebeef.com.
Welcome back. We're proud to celebrate 400 episodes of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with this special live edition from our nation's capital. And joining me now to talk about taxes and trade is Kent Backus with NCBA here in Washington, D.C. Kent, thanks for joining us for a few minutes this evening.
Good to see you.
I know you particularly focus on tax and trade. I'd like to start with trade. Give our viewers an update on the trade opportunities right now with the beef industry.
Well, foreign demand just continues to skyrocket for U.S. beef. The more the middle class continues to grow in Asia, the more exposed they become to proteins like U.S. beef, and we just continue to dominate in a lot of the markets there. You know, last year we sold over $6 billion worth of U.S. beef worldwide, and that's just on exports alone. We're on track again this year to meet and pretty much exceed those same levels. So that's a great opportunity for us. Hopefully that will return, you know, more pennies to the pockets of our producers, and that's something we can all be excited about.
You bet. Now, we hear a lot of acronyms floating around as it relates to trade, TPP and TTIP. Tell our viewers what those acronyms mean and talk to us more about where we stand with those trade agreements.
Well, TPP stands for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's it's essentially a trade framework or free trade agreement with the Pacific Rim countries, including the United States and Japan. For us, the big opportunity there is obviously Japan. Japan's our largest export market. Last year, we sold over $1.5 billion worth of U.S. beef to Japanese consumers, but we sold it at a 38.5% tariff rate. So TPP will give us the opportunity to eliminate that tariff rate and also the high tariffs in a lot of the other Pacific Rim countries. Now, TTIP is a transatlantic trade deal. So essentially a free trade agreement with Europe. And Europe is obviously a very strong continent for U.S. beef sales. Last year, we sold over $200 million worth of U.S. beef there, but we're restricted on a lot of the kinds of beef we can sell. They have a lot of restrictions on the technologies that we use, and so we would like to have more of a science-based relationship on that trade agreement, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate that in the next year.
You know, with these high cattle prices, the word taxes come out of the mouths of a lot of cattle people. I would be interested in your thoughts about the current tax situation and, more importantly, as we see the changes in Congress, what opportunities might be available over the next couple of years from any kind of tax reform?
Obviously, the government always wants their pound of flesh, and you know, we try to do our best to make sure that the tax code is a little more stable than it has been. Unfortunately, the tax code continues to expire every couple of years, and in some cases you have provisions that are expired now that we're having to deal with. Right. So we're working on a tax extenders package. Hopefully we'll be able to see that during this lame duck session of Congress. And you know, two of the big things we're focused on there would be the Section 179 expensing for small businesses, right, and bonus depreciation. We'd much rather our producers be able to invest in their operations than cut a big check to Uncle Sam.
And so to that end, what guidance and advice would you give cattle producers as we near the end of the year and begin doing some tax planning?
Well, I would say you definitely want to engage with your members of Congress and tell them how important these tax extenders are to you, and also push them for tax reform. We need a predictable, stable tax code that represents 21st century needs. And so by engaging with their members of Congress, that's an important thing they can do right now. But also, get with your CPA and get everything ready, because as this Congress continues to act, hopefully we'll have some action and they'll be able to take advantage of all those important provisions in the tax code.
We look forward to bringing you back and hearing the good word a little later. One of the great reasons to become an NCBA member is the opportunity to read the National Cattlemen, the official publication of NCBA. It's a great resource filled with news and valuable information just for NCBA members. You can find out more about the National Cattlemen and NCBA membership by calling 1-866-USA-BEEF or visiting the website beefusa.org. Stay with us. There's more of this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen to come just ahead.
New Holland is the undisputed leader in hay tools. We give farmers a wide range of innovative equipment that increases efficiency and productivity all year round. Because to us, smart means providing a smooth, clean cut with faster dry down, plug-free conditioning, and superior bale density. And smart means leaving less hay on the field to feed more livestock in less time. That's New Holland Smart. Visit your local New Holland dealer today.
No storm is too powerful for new Purina Wind and Rain Storm Minerals, formulated with ultimate weather resistance. That means more minerals in the feeder and available to your cattle. Wind and Rain Storm Minerals provide more consistent intake and balanced mineral nutrition to optimize herd health and breedback rates. See the difference at your local Purina dealer or visit cattlenutrition.com. Wind and Rain Storm Minerals, another way Purina is building better cattle.
It's the official monthly publication of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. The National Cattleman is produced exclusively for NCBA members and includes coverage of the news and events affecting our industry. Every issue includes market analysis, feature stories, and practical management tips. Start receiving your copy of The National Cattleman. Call 866-USA-BEEF or go online to beefusa.org and join today.
Let's face it. You don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. Short nights, the long hauls, the never-ending chores, the unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
If you're not using IMI Global's verification programs, you might as well set your money on fire. To give your wieners added value, no program begins without a traceable animal. Then add on BQA and other specialties, and you open up a whole new market for your calves. You might be thinking, the market's so good, why bother? You ever heard of making hay when the sun shines? You got a choice. Get in the game or visit IMIGlobal.com.
Welcome back to this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen as we come to you from our nation's capital. It's not too soon to mark your calendar for sizzling hot San Antonio. It's a cattle industry convention and NCBA trade show set for February 4th through the 7th. There's entertainment, education, and the biggest cattle industry trade show. Registration is open now at the website beefusa.org. And with me once again for some final thoughts on policy issues facing the cattle industry in the year ahead is Colin Woodall. Colin, real quick question. What is the best political advice you could give cattle producers from Washington, D.C.'s perspective?
The best advice is to get engaged and be informed, because the world belongs to those who show up, are informed on the issues, and are willing to lift a hand and actually help us on Capitol Hill. Now, we know that you're awfully busy, but we need some help. One of the things that makes us very effective is to be able to go into all these offices on Capitol Hill and say that we have the support of all of our producers back home. So watch Cattlemen to Cattlemen every week and know the issues.
Get involved. Thanks, Colin. Remember, you can find out more information on a wide variety of topics, as well as a free video replay of all our shows and stories archived on our website. Just log on to cattlementocattlemen.org. Well, that wraps up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen as we celebrate our 400th episode. Again, our thanks to the NCBA leaders, members, and to all of our loyal viewers at home who support our program each week. It's been a privilege to provide cattle industry news, information, and education each and every week since 2007. We hope we've helped you be more successful and more profitable in your own cattle operation. Thanks for spending some of your time with us. From Washington, D.C., I'm Kevin Ochsner with all of our Cattlemen and Cattlemen team saying we'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.